What's up, YouTube? It's Elijah the Hero, and today we are here to talk about more Marvel Midnight Suns, specifically about the Morbius DLC. Just gonna give you my thoughts and opinions, how I felt about it, and is it even worth your money? And before we get in the review, if this is your first time watching this video, or you just kind of want to get the Morbius DLC because you're a Morbius fan, which I don't know if there's a lot of you out there, but I do want to let you know that this is only part 3 in a ongoing DLC story that's been going on since they introduced Deadpool. So you kind of need to play the other DLCs to really know what's going on, but the gist of it is that there's a vampire invasion coming, and Dracula is basically coming, and you get hired by Mephisto to kind of stop the vampire uprise. And that is basically the gist of the story without getting into spoiler territory. If you want to know how I felt about the Deadpool and Venom DLC, I'll leave a link in the description box below, and I'll also leave a card for the Venom DLC so you can see how I felt about that also. Alright, with all that out the way, kicking off this review, I think I'll just give you a little story synopsis of what's really going on. So Morbius is basically eating Hydra soldiers that are turned into vampires. Well, he's kind of just sucking on their blood to get information out of them, because I guess he can do that, which I didn't know vampires could do. So basically he's like, if he eats them, he gets their memories. So he's trying to figure out basically what's going on, because he was hired by Hydra at one point to basically, well, he wasn't hired, but they were funding him, and he didn't know it was Hydra funding his research, his vampire research. And basically Sin, the granddaughter of the Red Skull, who we met in the first DLC, the Deadpool one, she's the one who basically has been funding Morbius's research. Turns out that Morbius has been researching how vampires can basically live in the sunlight, is basically what he's been doing. He's created a cure basically for the biggest weakness that vampires have. So now he's pissed, and he wants basically to get his research back and to destroy Dracula and the vampire uprise. So he aligns himself with the Midnight Suns so that basically he can do that. And that's just basically the gist of his story without getting any spoilers. There are some twists and turns, and it actually is a fun ride, which is crazy to say because I was not expecting a lot out of the Morbius DLC, because I don't really like Morbius like that. I know he's mainly a Spider-Man villain, but he's never been like somebody that I thought was a cool Spider-Man villain, if you get what I mean. But this, hands down, out of the 3 DLC that have came out so far, is the best DLC. This is the best story, the best character, and the best kind of like, I guess, like action going on in it. It's like this story, this DLC had me tied in from start to finish. Morbius is such an interesting character, and maybe, I don't know if he's just written like that for this game or he's just like that overall, because my main knowledge of Morbius is from the Spider-Man 90s cartoon, and I did not like him in that. And I think he was a villain in the Spider-Man 2 video game, and I didn't like him in that either. So like, this version of Morbius is really good, really well written. He's like a kind of tragic character, and I don't know if he's really like that all the time, but I'm really vibing with this take of him. I also like Morbius's customization options. He has some cool outfits. He has his regular outfit, his Midnight Suns outfit, because if you did not know, Morbius was a member of the Midnight Suns in the actual comic book. So that's pretty cool that, they tie that in and like have an actual Midnight Sun from the comics in the Midnight Suns game, because there's not a lot of them. But yeah, those outfits are cool. Of course, he has his Midnight Suns outfit too from the actual game, the gold one. Haven't unlocked those because I don't have enough time to actually get my friendship meters up with these DLC characters. So those outfits are cool. I like his base outfits too. But that's basically Morbius in a nutshell. Like I said, I really do like his characterization in this game. I feel like, he's basically paying for his sins, and he's getting taken advantage of, and he kind of wants to be a good guy, but it seems like every time he tries to be one in the game, it's just something that sets him back. I like him and Blade's kind of back and forth, how like the hunter will compare them to each other, but they don't like to be compared to each other because they see themselves as really different, but they're actually just basically 2 sides of the same coin. But that's enough of that. Let's get into the gameplay. Now, I'd have to say this is kind of like the weakest point of the DLC with Morbius. I don't feel like Morbius is that great of a character to really play as. He kind of just falls in the lines of everybody else. His gimmick is that he has this meter called Hunger that adds a damage multiplier and adds bleed to enemies he uses against. And that's pretty cool. So he like deals damage like over time, and you can kind of buff it with modifiers with the cards and everything. But he's not really my speed. I feel like personally when you start out with him in the DLC, he does not do enough damage to the point where he's more of a hindrance on the team than a kind of like reliable person. Like Venom, for example, was very reliable in the DLC, and the DLC story that you played with him in, he kind of, you know, held his own and would be like the deciding factor of like the difficulty with the different vampires. Morbius, on the other hand, is kind of just like a character who doesn't really do too much damage and doesn't really help out in the beginning. But as you start leveling him up and he gets stronger, he does become a powerhouse. But he's the only DLC in the kind of beginning and actually doing the DLC story that it's kind of difficult to play with him on the team, because it feels like he's hindering your teamwork and the synergy of the team. Because personally, I couldn't find any characters that really meshed well with him, and having Blade be in the DLC so much this time around, I don't feel like Blade is like one of the top characters. I don't think he's like really that great of a character. So having him and Morbius, it feels like, you know, whoever that third person you're gonna pick needs to be a stronger character to like basically hold the team together. And I think Spider-Man was a perfect person to use for the introduction of the DLC, because without Spider-Man, I think the DLC would have been way harder. And you play with Spider-Man, Morbius, and Blade a lot in this DLC. Basically, the DLC really centers around those three characters. And I feel like without Spider-Man, this would have been way hard. Blade is okay, and Morbius is kind of bad until you start leveling him up. But, you know, that is for you to decide. I think everybody kind of has their own characters that they like to use and what team synergies they like to have. For me, Morbius doesn't fit in any of the team synergies that I like personally. And those are my thoughts on the Morbius DLC for Marvel's Midnight Suns. Honestly, this is a tricky one to recommend, because this DLC alone I would recommend because it's really fun. And if you like really enjoyed Marvel Midnight Suns and you just kind of want to pick one of the DLCs to get right now, I would say this is the one to get. This one has probably the most story and like the most fun to be had. The other DLCs are okay, but this is definitely the best one by far. And it's kind of surprising because I didn't expect Morbius to be next. I thought Storm would be next, and then Morbius would be the one to wrap this whole vampire DLC storyline up. But it seems like it's going to continue with Storm. I really don't know what part she's going to play, because personally to me, without spoiling, it seems like things got wrapped up kind of here. Not really, but I shouldn't even talk about that. But yeah, I would recommend getting this DLC if, like, you know, you're just looking for more Marvel Midnight Suns to play, then yeah. But you don't have to buy the season pass. You can literally buy these DLCs individually. I think they're like $10 individually, but it was really fun and I really enjoyed this one. And if you get it, I hope you enjoy it too. If you're not going to get it, let me know. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. I've been Elijah the Hero. Peace.
My heart keep beating, tending to my garden, but I swear it turned to eating. When they see my eyes, how the fuck can they ignore me? Hear them birds chirping when I creep and then she Dory. Nigga fuck a curse mark, I'm good with the blade work. Is he really dead? Well, come on, let's just make sure. Any hesitation when we move, this ain't a place for. All up in my head and my brother tell me hate more. Phoenix fly bloom in his chest to have a heat stroke.